Are you thinking about buying your first rental property, but you're not sure where to start? I remember when we bought our very first one, and it was a little bit scary at first, but once we got that first one, then we were hooked. So stay tuned to learn 5 tips I have for you. I call them my 5 P's of rental property investment, so that you can make sure that your first deal is a success. If you're looking for great tips on buying and then eventually managing rental property, then subscribe to our channel and make sure that you hit the bell so that you'll be notified every time we put out a new video each Wednesday. So have you started the process of planning to buy your first rental property? There are so many things you have to think about. You have to think about the financing of the property, to selecting the right type of property for you and the right location, and then ultimately the type of management you're going to do, whether you're doing that yourself or you're hiring a property manager. My name is Richey, and I do have some experience with this. I am a landlord, and I'm also the broker of a residential property management company in Northern Virginia. My husband and I have bought and sold many rental properties over the years. We still have several in our area that are in our portfolio, as well as we manage just over 300 rental properties for our clients. So by the end of this video, you'll have 5 areas that you need to think about first when you're starting the planning process to buy your rental property. So let's start with the first P, prepare. You need to do a lot of preparation in order to get yourself ready to buy a property. So let's start with a credit report. Having a good credit score is really going to help you when it comes to the financing of your property. If you don't know what your credit score is, there are a lot of online resources so that you can get a free credit report. Resources like creditkarma.com. Just look online and you'll find a place to go. And the first thing you want to do is see where you are. The credit score is really your financial health. It tells a lender how strong of a candidate you are, and the better your credit score, the better your interest rate can be. So you also might discover some errors on your credit report. That happens from time to time. So you want to make sure that you deal with those and get those fixed right away. The next thing in preparing is to consider the down payment. A down payment for a rental property is going to be higher than it would be for a primary residence. Most lenders will require about 15 to 25% down payment for a rental property. And also, it affects your monthly payment. So the more you put down, the lower your monthly payment, and the more likely your property would be to cash flow. And the third thing you need to do in preparation is to select a lender. Finding a good lender early on in the process will help you understand what you can qualify for, how much down payment you'll need, and what your options are in terms of loans. And that will set up everything for when you start to begin the search with a real estate agent. The lender will also help you determine what's a comfortable range for you in terms of a monthly payment. Because remember, if the tenant doesn't pay or you have a vacancy, you still have to pay the mortgage. So you need to make sure that you have enough reserves and that you're comfortable with that mortgage amount every month. The second P is picking the right property. You can invest in all kinds of real estate. You can invest in residential properties, commercial properties, multifamily properties. But if this is your first rental property, I would recommend keeping it simple. Something you are more familiar with, and that is going to be a residential property. And there's all kinds of residential properties. There are condominiums, townhomes, single family homes. What you choose will ultimately depend on your budget, but also you want to look at factors like maintenance and ease, because single family homes are going to have more maintenance on the interior, exterior than a condo will, where you're just dealing with things mainly on the inside. But you do have condo fees. So there are a number of pros and cons to each type of property, and I talk about this in another video. So let's move on to the third P, and that is place. It really means picking the right location. And when I talk about location, I'm really talking about 2 kinds of things. One is the bigger picture. Where do you buy this property? What city? Do you buy it in the same city you live in, or do you buy it in some other city around the world or around the country? And then once you select that city, where is the location within that city? Closer in, further out? Those are the kinds of things. So let's start with the bigger picture, picking the city. If you live in a city like I do in Washington, D.C., it's very expensive here, and it makes it difficult to cash flow a property unless you pay all cash for a property or put a very large amount of money down. Most people don't have that much money. So what we do have here is we have decent appreciation, but it's difficult again to make a property cash flow. In other parts of the country, in smaller cities where the cost of living is a little bit less, it's a lot easier to make a property cash flow because you can put more down and it's not as many dollars as it would be in our area. But you probably won't get as much appreciation in some of those cities. You might, but most likely you won't. So you need to sort of assess what your goals are for the property. Do you really want to just have long-term appreciation, or are you looking for more immediate cash flow right now? And if this is your first rental property, it sometimes can be a little daunting thinking about buying something in another city. You have to rely on people you probably don't know, another property manager, a real estate agent to help you find the right location and then manage the property going forward. Having a property in your own backyard is a little easier, especially the first time around. You can drive by it when you feel like it, just make sure the tenant's doing what, keeping up with the outside. You can do periodic walkthroughs on a more regular basis for yourself and see things with your own eyes. And you can be your own property manager if you want to. You don't have to, but you can do that if it's local. And when it's not local, it's much more difficult to do so. So those are, again, two other things, and that really just depends on what your mindset is and what your comfort level is. So now let's say you've chosen the city that you want to invest in, whether it's your city or another one, it doesn't matter. Within that city, you want to pick the best location for you and for your rental property. So if it's somewhere else, you need to rely on other experts. And even if it's local, you need to rely on experts like real estate agents and property managers to help you identify good neighborhoods that will rent well. And you want to think about things and do your own research on where is good public transportation. Are you near a metro? What other kinds of things are being developed in certain areas that are drawing people to those locations where there's high demand? Because not everybody is going to buy. But if people want to live in a certain area, that may be a good place to buy a rental property. So those are the sorts of things that you need to think about and do your research. The fourth P I want to talk about is partners. You must have good partners when you own a rental property. You cannot do this alone. We already talked about a few partners: the lender, a real estate agent, property manager. Those are all key people in the early stages of financing and finding a rental property. But then once you have it and you are renting it out, you need a good accountant. That's another partner that sometimes people don't think about. Accountants can be great advisors for all different kinds of tax strategies that you might not have thought about related to rental property and just doing your taxes in general. The other key person is a contractor or a team of contractors. If you live locally or you don't, you've got to have a good team of contractors if you're managing this property yourself. You want to have people who respond quickly, people who are licensed and insured, and people who will be fair with the price. You don't always want the cheapest person because you might not get the best results. Keeping your tenant happy and being responsive when things break is really important, because the faster you respond, the better contractors you have. Keeps the tenant happier, they will tend to stay longer, and that reduces your vacancy and ultimately makes you more profitable. So if you don't know great contractors, definitely start asking around and get referrals. Ask your friends, ask real estate agents ask property managers. You need to surround yourself with a great quality team who is responsive and will be there for you and for your tenant. Because the happier your tenant is, because you're responsive and take care of things when they break, the more likely that tenant is to stay. And if they stay, then obviously you don't have to deal with re-renting the property, and it makes you more profitable in the end. And the last and final P is profitability. Obviously, every investor wants to be profitable, but as you know, and as we've talked about, the planning process, the picking the right property, and then managing the property, all of those stages affect your profitability. When you buy, if you get a great deal, obviously that helps. The better the type of financing, the better interest rate you get, that affects your monthly payment, that affects your profitability. Depending on the type of home you buy, the less maintenance it needs, that affects your profitability. Having a great accountant, somebody who can help you be smart and strategic, helps profitability. And having a good property manager affects your profitability, because yes, there is an expense to use a property manager, but they can often minimize expenses, definitely reduce headache for you in terms of getting calls late at night. And sometimes profitability isn't just all in the numbers, but it's in the overall experience. So remember too, with a property manager, you can deduct the amount you pay them on your taxes. So having all of those key people along the way affects your profitability, and we certainly hope you will be profitable with your first deal and others to follow. So there you have it. Those are my 5 P's for buying rental property, and I hope this has been helpful for you. If it has, please give us a thumbs up. And if you want to keep getting useful information like this, not just about buying rental property, but also landlord tips, don't forget to subscribe as well. Thank you so much, and I'll be back with more landlord tips in the next video.